Hi, I'm RG, a writer, reader, and lover of all things written word adjacent. Today specifically, that means little free library books. I got to go to a part of town I don't spend much time in today, and decided to spend the time between appointments doing a local tour of the little free libraries in the neighborhood. I must have visited, I think, at least 10, if not more, and I ended up with about that many books too. So today I thought I'd show you what my little free library raid ended up contributing to my TBR list, and the 2 books that I picked up from a local bookshop that I visited when I realized I didn't have a tote bag to carry all of my loot with. So here is my little free library raid. Vlog style format first. You can skip toward the end if you want to see the book by book breakdown. But either way, I'll see you at the end of the video. Okay. There it is. But you know what? It's free. We'll just take it. Thank you, little free library. Little free library. What's this? The neighbor. The same bright stars. All right. Library. Gosh, I haven't read this in a long time. This feels racist. Book of Dead Days. That's a great title. Oh, I love Neruda. Thank you, little free library. See, I think that this might have been a mistake, because now I have one hand for my phone, one hand for my coffee, and then here's the little free library. Well, at least this one doesn't have a totally pitched roof. What is this? Thank you, little free library. This is the second Matt Haig Midnight Library book I've seen in the last 3 months. Little free library. I mean, they say not to judge a book by its cover, but I could never. Oh my gosh, look at this thing. No, oh, it's book 3. If it was book 1, I would have taken it. Evidently, there's a school right across the street. And little free library. Let's take a look. You go to this. The Lovely Bones. But I will take the Lovely Bones. Thank you, little free library. Hello. Oh my. For my friends who write, you ever see something and think to yourself, that's going to end up in one of my novels someday? I think this is definitely one of those things. I mean, just look at it. What do you know? There's a park. Like, it just does not get more Sleepy Hollow than that. Look at this. Where is he? There he is. Like, just look. A black squirrel. Look at this festive one. It's a great cover, but maybe not right now. Let's see. She's come undone. Okay. We're gonna take these two. Ta-da. Thank you, giant free library. I love it. It's got wallpaper. Look at it. All right. The Death of a Glutton. Black duck. Okay, and our last stop is this cute little free library with a little bunny in a bathtub. Let's see what we've got. Oops. I think that's all I need today. The first book is Lisa Gardner's The Neighbor, a Detective D.D. Warren novel. Now, I'll be honest that I am not the kind of person who actively picks out thriller novels to read very often, but I must have been in the mood for them because I picked out at least two, if not a few more than that. Here's what this one's about. A young mother, blonde and pretty, vanishes from her South Boston home, leaving behind only one witness, her 4-year-old daughter, and one suspect, her handsome, secretive husband. From the moment Detective Sergeant D.D. Warren arrives at the Joneses' snug little bungalow, instinct tells her that something is seriously off with the wholesome image the couple has worked so hard to create. With the clock ticking on the life of a missing woman and a media firestorm building, Dee must decide whether Jason Jones is hiding his guilt or just trying to hide. But first, she must stand between a potential killer and his next victim, an innocent child who may have seen too much. Apparently, I'm in for some heart-stopping suspense with this book. I will say it seems like this officer has a thing for alliterative names, since we have Detective D.D. Warren, and then there's also a Jason Jones who seems to be the prime suspect. Just something that gives me a little giggle. Well, like I said, not the most active reader of thrillers. However, I am excited to see what twists and turns this story takes. The next book, and granted these are in no particular order, this is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. It's his first novel. An orphan's life is harsh and often short in the mysterious island city of Camor. But young Locke Lamora dodges death and slavery, becoming a thief under the tutelage of a gifted con artist. As leader of the band of light-fingered brothers known as the Gentleman Bastards, Locke is soon infamous, fooling even the underworld's most feared ruler. But in the shadows lurks someone still more ambitious and deadly. Faced with a bloody coup that threatens to destroy everyone and everything that holds meaning in his mercenary life, Locke vows to beat the enemy at his own brutal game, or die trying. This is described as a high-octane fantasy and a true genre bender. And it's published by Del Rey, so I'm assuming it is a fantasy. I mean, if the fictional mysterious island city of Camor and Gentleman Thieves didn't clue you in that it's a fantasy. But this is not from an author that I've read. In fact, none of these books, except for one, are authors that are familiar to me. So since George R.R. Martin said that this is original, engrossing, and gorgeously realized, I'm going to give it a fair shake. The next book is Black Duck by Janet Taylor Lyle. And looking at the back cover now, I see that this is a Scholastic book. So there were one or two books that I picked up that I got from little free libraries that were relatively close to schools, I believe. So it makes sense that there's a few middle grade or younger reader-oriented novels among the bunch, but that's okay. This one is a gripping saga of rum running on the Rhode Island coast during the 1920s. When Reuben and Jetty find a dead body in an evening suit washed up on the shore, they're certain it has to do with smuggling liquor. It is spring 1929. Prohibition is in full swing, and many in their community are involved. Soon, the boys, along with Jetty's strong-willed sister Marina, are drawn in, suspected by rival bootlegging gangs of taking something crucial off the dead man. Then Reuben meets the daring captain of the Black Duck, the most elusive smuggling craft of them all, and it isn't long before he's keeping dangerous company. Inspired by very real accounts of the Black Duck, a legendary rum-running boat that worked the New England shores during the era, Newbery Honor winner Janet Taylor Lyle has written a colorful, original work of historical fiction. Now, I remember, if you ask me why I picked this up, I will say it's because I'm interested in stories that happen, or I'm interested in stories that are set during Prohibition. But to be honest, I just really like ducks. I'll be honest, I don't really know why I picked this one up, because this cover is frankly terrifying. This is She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb. It's one of Oprah's book club books and a New York Times bestseller. The back reads, "Mine is a story of craving, an unreliable account of lusts and troubles that began somehow in 1956 on the day our free television was delivered. Meet Dolores Price. She's 13, wise-mouthed but wounded, having bid her childhood goodbye. Beached in front of her bedroom TV, she spends the next few years nourishing herself with the Malamars, potato chips, and Pepsi her anxious mother supplies. When she finally enters young womanhood at 257 pounds, Dolores is no stronger and life is no kinder. But this time she's determined to rise to the occasion and give herself one more chance before really going belly up. In this extraordinary coming-of-age odyssey, Wally Lamb invites us to hitch a wild ride on a journey of love, pain, and renewal with the most heartbreakingly comical heroine to come along in years. At once a fragile girl and a hard-edged cynic, so tough to love yet intimately lovable, Dolores is as poignantly real as our own imperfections. She's Come Undone includes a promise: you will never forget Dolores Price." The quote at the beginning, "Mine is a story of craving, an unreliable account of lusts and troubles that began somehow, blah, blah, blah," scratched an itch in my brain. In general, I really enjoy reading about the theme of consumption, not so much consumption as in eating as it relates to weight, but the idea of consumption as a way that we interact with the world, how the things that we take into or make a part of our own bodies sort of reflect who we are as people and who we want to be. So I'm thinking things like, I read a lot of books with cannibalism. I also read a lot of books that have characters with pica, or where, the act of taking something into your body happens, frequently as a sort of like active participation in, the world that the character is in. I guess that sounds like I'm talking about vampires, but I don't read that many vampire books. Anyway, the point is, this is not the kind of consumption that I normally read. And I think that the key phrases that kind of stood out to me in that quote sort of made my brain fuzz over and ignore the rest of the summary. I will say I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea of reading a book written by a middle-aged white-appearing person. We'll just say a middle-aged white man, when it's about a 13-year-old coming-of-age story for a young woman who deals with her physical weight. And the jacket uses a lot of language which revolves around comparing Dolores as a character to marine mammals. That makes me a little uncomfortable. I'm hoping that that's not the overall attitude that this book takes towards women, their bodies, and weight. We'll give it a shot. I don't know that I'm terribly hopeful. I might do a little bit more looking into this one before I actually dive in. This next book, I recognize the author. Well, I recognize the cover and the title. I'll be honest, I think pretty much everybody does. This is The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. This book came out in 2002. And I think at the time, pretty much everyone and their mother was reading this book. I missed it. I don't know what I was doing back then, and I don't want to think that far back. But this is sort of a gap in my contemporary fiction education that I figured I would fill since the book was there. And again, this is another thriller, I believe. I'll go ahead and read the back jacket for those of you who haven't heard of this one. My name was Salmon, like the fish. First name, Susie. I was 14 when I was murdered on December 6th, 1973. So begins the story of Susie Salmon, who's adjusting to her new home in heaven. A place that is not at all what she expected, even as she is watching life on Earth continue without her, her friends trading rumors about her disappearance, her killer trying to cover his tracks, her grief-stricken family unraveling. Out of unspeakable tragedy and loss, The Lovely Bones succeeds miraculously in building a tale filled with hope, humor, suspense, even joy. Like I said, I missed the boat on this one, but I am excited to read it and see what all the hype was about 22 years ago. This is another book that was picked up from one of the little free libraries near the school. So this book, along with Black Duck, I think are going to be taking me back to my childhood. But this is The Book of Dead Days by Marcus Sedgwick. I confess I picked it up initially just because of the cover, and then I opened it up and read the inside, and it does look like a lot of fun to read. It is middle grade. It's listed for 10 and up, so we'll see. But get this. The days between Christmas and New Year's Eve are dead days when spirits roam and magic shifts restlessly just beneath the surface of our lives. A lot can happen in the dead days. There's a magician called Valerian who must save his own life or pay the price for the pact he made with evil so many years ago. But alchemy and sorcery are no match for the demonic power pursuing him. Helping him is his servant boy, a child with no name and no past. And the quick-witted Willow is with them as they dig in death fields at midnight and are swept into the sprawling blackness of a subterranean city on a journey from which there is no escape. Unknown to any of them, it is Boy who holds the key to all of their destinies. His revelations will be shocking. The Book of Dead Days, beautifully imagined and dramatic, conjures a spellbinding story of power, corruption, and desperate magic. Now, I thought that was a really great story summary. And, you know, even though I am not the target age demographic for this book, I do think that there's always something that one can learn as a writer from reading books that are not necessarily targeted toward you. That said, it just looks like a lot of fun. And, you know, sometimes you want to read something light that doesn't require a lot from you. This is one of those books. Okay, here is the one book whose author I am familiar with. This is The Essential Neruda, Selected Poems, edited by Mark Eisner. Now, I am a fan of Neruda. I love him. He is from my country, or I should say I'm from his country, given that he was born first. But I have always been a fan of his poetry. I sometimes will record myself reading his poetry and send it to my friends as a fun little way of flirting with my friends. But I was really happy to pick this book up, not only because I am a fan, but because this does something that I really enjoy in literature and translation, especially when it comes to poetry, is it has the Spanish version on one page and then the English translation on the page opposite, which I think is fantastic. There's something about poetry specifically, you know, it's true that you lose a lot with literature and translation because, you know, there's nuances in certain languages, historical context, things like that, which don't necessarily translate over. However, I think that we are incredibly, incredibly lucky that literature and translation has become so important and so common, and that we are able to access the literary canon of different languages and cultures throughout the world in order to expand our literary palettes, our framework for the universe, and how we perceive the people and the places around us. I think that's really magical. I will say that with poetry in particular, there is something about the sounds, the rhythm of poetry that is very difficult to translate when you are also trying to translate the meaning. So even if you don't have complete command of Spanish, for example, having the Spanish on one side to get an idea of what the sounds sound like, what the rhythm sounds like, the pace, and then looking towards the English translation for the meaning of the poem, I think is a really beautiful format for a deeper understanding of poetry and translation. Very excited to read a couple of these every night and see what the editors have contributed in addition to the translation of some of my favorite poems. This one is Witches, Midwives, and Nurses, A History of Women Healers. And the authors are Barbara Ehrenreich and Deirdre English. Now, I am English as a second language. I apologize to the authors for mispronouncing your names. I'm sure I got them wrong. This was published by the Feminist Press in 1973. There is not really a summary in the book about what the contents are, but it is incredibly short. And the back describes it as Witches, provides a historical background and justification for the self-help movement, as well as being one of the most exciting and joyous things I have ever read. Which are two very interesting little blurbs for what I'm sure will be an enlightening little volume about the history of women and self-care and caring for one another. The next book is Nisei Daughter by Monica Sohn. With charm, humor, and deep understanding, a Japanese-American woman tells how it was to grow up on Seattle's waterfront in the 1930s and be subjected to relocation during World War II. Along with some 120,000 other persons of Japanese ancestry, 77,000 of whom were U.S. citizens, she and her family were uprooted from their home and imprisoned in a camp. In this book, first published in 1952, she provides a unique personal account of these experiences. And it looks like the cover photograph is actually the author and her younger sister, Sumiko, taken in 1932. This is listed as a biography on the copyright page. I'm not sure if it's entirely autobiographical or if it's somewhat fictionalized. While I confess that I am not always in the mood to read historicals, especially biographical historicals, about human suffering in wartime. It is good to have this on the TBR, and I do look forward to reading it, although I don't look forward to, I'm sure, the emotional wreckage that I will be once I have finished flipping through its pages. Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor. And this is a Penguin teen, so it seems like it might be a YA novel. All her life, Janie has dreamed of elsewhere. Just barely scraping by with her job at a tannery, she's resigned to a dreary life in the port town of Dirk, caring for her younger sister, Zosa. That is, until the Hotel Magnifique comes to town. The hotel is legendary not only for its whimsical enchantments, but also for its ability to travel, appearing in a different destination every morning. While Janie and Zosa can't afford the exorbitant cost of a guest's stay, they can interview to join the staff and are soon whisked away on the greatest adventure of their lives. But once inside, Janie quickly discovers their contracts are unbreakable and that beneath the marvelous glamour, the hotel is hiding dangerous secrets. With the vexingly handsome doorman, Belle, as her only ally, Janie embarks on a mission to unravel the mystery of the magic at the heart of the hotel and free Zosa and the other staff from the cruelty of the ruthless maître d'hôtel. To succeed, she'll have to risk everything she loves, but failure would mean a fate far worse than never returning home. This looks like fun. I like the Howl's Moving Castle vibes of a hotel that travels. We'll see how it goes. This looks like it's a fairly recently published book. So we'll see what some modern YA looks like. I haven't read anything like this in a couple of years, I don't think. So filling in more contemporary young adult fiction gaps there. The next book, this one is yet another thriller. This is Karen M. McManus. Two Can Keep a Secret, If One is Dead. Echo Ridge is small-town America. Ellery's never been there, but she's heard all about it. Her aunt went missing there at age 17, and only 5 years ago, a homecoming queen put the town on the map when she was killed. Now Ellery has to move there to live with a grandmother she barely knows. The town is picture perfect, but it's hiding secrets. And before school even begins for Ellery, someone declares open season on homecoming, promising to make it as dangerous as it was 5 years ago. Then, almost as if to prove it, another girl goes missing. Ellery knows all about secrets. Her mother has them. Her grandmother does too. And the longer she's in Echo Ridge, the clearer it becomes that everyone there is hiding something. The thing is, secrets are dangerous, and most people aren't good at keeping them, which is why in Echo Ridge, it's safest to keep your secrets to yourself. Definitely picked this one up for the jacket. Was really feeling the true crime vibes of the conspiracy thread. You know the meme I'm thinking of, right? Anyway, I have no idea when I'll get to this one, but it does look like a lot of fun. This next one, I confess, I picked up exclusively because of the combination of cover and title. This is Creatures by Chrissy Van Meter. And one thing about me, I love mushrooms and anemones and anything with that kind of Lovecraftian, weird, is this really from Earth vibe to it. So cover, title that matches, I'm sold. On the eve of Evangeline's wedding on the shore of Winter Island, a dead whale is trapped in the harbor, the groom may be lost at sea, and Evie's mostly absent mother has shown up out of the blue. From there, in this mesmerizing, provocative debut, the narrative flows back and forth through time as Evie reckons with her complicated upbringing in this lush, wild land off the coast of Southern California. Evie grew up with her father, surviving off the money he made dealing the island's world-famous strain of weed, Winter Wonderland. Although her father raised her with a deep respect for the elements, the sea, the creatures living within it, he also left her to parent herself. With wit, love, and bracing flashes of anger, Creatures probes the complexities of love and abandonment, guilt and forgiveness, betrayal and grief, and the ways in which our childhoods can threaten our ability to love if we are not brave enough to conquer the past. Lyrical, modern, darkly funny, and ultimately cathartic, Creatures exerts a pull as strong as the tides, which I just think is just a gorgeous way to describe a novel. I love themes of Guilt and Forgiveness. I love lyrical, modern, darkly funny novels. This looks like it was made for me, so we will enjoy it. And the last book on my stack of Little Free Library Raid booty is All Fours by Miranda July. A giddy, bold, mind-blowing tour de force. Says George Saunders. I love George Saunders. I trust his taste. This is cute. It's got Little Free Library stamps in it. Once I'm done reading, it'll go back into the Little Free Library for circulation, I promise. A semi-famous artist announces her plan to drive cross-country from Los Angeles to New York City. 30 minutes after leaving her husband and child at home, she spontaneously exits the freeway, checks into a nondescript motel, and immerses herself in an entirely different journey. Miranda July's second novel confirms the brilliance of her unique approach to fiction. With July's wry voice, perfect comic timing, unabashed curiosity about human intimacy, and palpable delight in pushing boundaries, All Fours tells the story of one woman's quest for a new kind of freedom. Part absurd entertainment, part tender reinvention of the sexual, romantic, and domestic life of a 45-year-old female artist, All Fours transcends expectation while excavating our beliefs about life lived as a woman. Once again, July hijacks the familiar and turns it into something new and thrillingly, profoundly alive. I'll be honest, I'm of two minds about this one. While the cover design is absolutely brilliant, and George Saunders blurbed it, which I didn't notice until filming this video today, I may have a little bit of a personal vendetta against the literary trope of grown adult who abandons their family in order to embark on a journey of self-discovery. It is nice that this is done from a woman's point of view, so we'll see how that ends up. Anyway, I'll give it a shot, but I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to love this one, even though I do trust George Saunders' taste. Oh, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It's on the stack anyway. So those 13 books were my booty from the Little Free Library book raid. I did stop at a local bookstore when I realized I didn't have a tote bag to cart around all of my Little Free Library books in. So I stopped at a local bookstore, I purchased a tote bag, and I also stopped and picked up 2 new books. Now, I will say I generally tend to avoid buying new books unless they're books that I have read and loved and want to be a part of my collection forever. But I do have a lot of books on my shelves, either gifts or purchases for myself when I had little to no impulse control, which I have not yet read. And these 2 are adding to that pile. So I picked up this book. It was a recommendation from one of the employees at the store. This is The City in Glass by Nhi Vo, winner of a Hugo Award. So it says, a demon, an angel, a city. The demon Vitrine, immortal, powerful, and capricious, loves the dazzling city of Azrael. She has mothered, married, and maddened the city and its people for generations, and built into it a place of joy and desire, revelry, and riot. And then the angels come, and the city falls. Vitrine is left with nothing but memories, and a book containing the names of those she has lost, and an angel, now bound by her mad, grief-stricken curse to haunt the city he burned. She mourns her dead and rages against the angels she longs to destroy. Made to be each other's devastation, angel and demon are destined for eternal battle. Instead, they find themselves locked in a devouring fascination that will change them both forever. Together, they unearth the past of the lost city and begin to shape its future. But when war threatens Azrael and everything they have built, Vitrine and her angel must decide whether they will let the city fall again. The City in Glass is both a brilliantly constructed history. I can read. The City in Glass is both a brilliantly constructed history and an epic love story of death and resurrection, memory and transformation, redemption and desire strong enough to reduce a world to ashes and remake it anew. How good does that sound? Tell me that this is not just like the best mouthfeel for a sentence. She has mothered, married, and maddened the city and its people for generations. Oh, I just love sentences that just come out of your mouth like that, that just roll off the tongue. Really a good reminder that storytelling was originally an oral medium. So I picked this book up because it was recommended by the bookseller at the store, and she said that not only was it incredibly good to read, but that she and several of the other employees at the shop had read it, loved it, and then had some animated discussion about what the ending meant, which is an enticement that I am incapable of resisting. I love it when there is room for interpretation. I love it when the reader is active in the storytelling and has to decide how the story moves in that way. So this is a book that I am very excited to read. The Dictionary People, The Unsung Heroes Who Created the Oxford English Dictionary by Sarah Ogilvie? So the reason that I picked this book is, okay, in high school, I was a little bit of a nerd. I did more often than not tend to eat lunch with my English teacher. I loved her. I thought she was just the coolest. She was so smart and funny, and she really informed my love of language, reading, writing, language learning as well. And I've always thought of her, every few years I'll think of her and I'll try to find her online and see if I can shoot her an email and let her know what a big impact she had on my life, because she was fantastic. But she and I had a conversation once about how the Oxford English Dictionary came to be. And the Oxford English Dictionary, for those of you who don't know, is just this amazing compendium of words and their definitions and their origins, which is just absolutely unbelievable how they managed to put this together. And she and I had talked about it briefly, but as soon as I saw this title, she came to mind and I knew I had to pick it up. And then I read the back, and I don't care if you're not a person who likes nonfiction, I'm going to read this to you and you need to tell me if this is not a book that you would love to read. The Oxford English Dictionary is one of the Western culture's greatest literary achievements, and yet curiously, its creators are almost never acknowledged. Who were the people behind this unprecedented book? As Sarah Ogilvie reveals, they include 3 murderers, a collector of pornography, a daughter of Karl Marx, a president of Yale, a radical suffragette, a vicar who was later found dead in the cupboard of his chapel, the inventor of the first American subway, a female anti-slavery activist in Philadelphia, and thousands more. A thrilling literary detective story, The Dictionary People unravels the mystery of the fascinating global cast of contributors who, for more than 70 years, helped to codify the way we read and write and speak. Their combined efforts resulted in what is arguably the greatest crowdsourcing endeavor in human history, the Wikipedia of its time. Here, then, is a celebration of words, language, and people whose eccentricities and obsessions, triumphs and failures enriched the English language. Enthralling and exuberant, Sarah Ogilvie tells the surprising story of the making of the OED. Philologists, fantasists, crackpots, criminals, career spinsters, suffragists, and Australians. Here is a wonder book for word lovers. Tell me you don't want to read this. And on that note, we are going to end this video. Thank you for keeping me company on my little free library raid and bookstore 2-book haul. I hope some of these books seem interesting to you. Maybe some are books you've never heard of before or authors that you've never heard of before. Let me know if you have any recommendations, things that you find interesting or that are on your to-be-read list that you are looking forward to reading in the upcoming months. I'll see you next time. Bye.